All right, we're populating our boxes here.
Yeah, and as experience of the last few days goes, I'm sure another few will arrive in the next few minutes because they didn't want to hang out in the waiting room. Thank you to everybody who did hang out in the waiting room. The panel will begin. You are at somebody else's sandbox, and we have three of our panelists with us. I'm sure Linda will be joining us shortly. We have, where are we? We have the wonderful Maya Kaathryn Bohnhoff. We have the fantastic Austin Aslan, and we have the utterly unique Weston Ochse. And I will hand over to you to introduce yourselves, tell us something about yourself, and why you're on somebody else's sandbox panel.
What order do you want us to go in? Alphabetical?
Ladies first.
Oh, ladies first. Okay. Well, I'm Maya Kaathryn Bohnhoff, and I am a writer and editor and musician. I started out writing science fiction many moons ago, mostly in Analog magazine, and then discovered a weirder side of myself and got a bunch of stuff published in Interzone, and just sort of floated around. I write fantasy, science fiction, mysteries. My most recent book, actually, my most recent novel is a detective adventure mystery novel called The Antiquities Hunter. It's about black market antiquities. So it's just sort of a madhouse in my head that I write from. And I have also, as part of that, done Star Wars novels. Most recently in 2013, before the movie came out, The Last Jedi, which is not that Last Jedi, it's the first Last Jedi. So that's me. Austin, take it.
Austin, Wes, two men enter, one man leave.
That's very cool, Maya. Hi guys, my name is Austin Aslan. I'm
largest xenomorphs from the movies, comic books. Let's dive.
Oh, is that you, Weston?
I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what it is. I have no idea.
The newborn alien first appeared in Alien Resurrection.
Oh my!
Will somebody please mute Weston? I'm just teasing you, man.
That was great. Alien Resurrection. Woo! Okay. All right.
You all set?
I think we're good.
All right. Oh, you don't have to mute yourself, Weston. So I'm Austin Aslan. I live in Flagstaff. I've been writing novels, traditionally published novels, since 2012. My debut, Islands at the End of the World, was named one of the top 10 best science fiction books of 2014 by Kirkus Reviews. So that was pretty exciting. And then I wrote a second book in that series. And after that, I did get into some intellectual property stuff. I've written 2 books for HarperCollins in something called the Trailblazers series, or the Turbo Racer series. Book 1 is Trailblazer, book 2 is Escape Velocity. These properties have been picked up by 20th Century Fox. So that's kind of exciting. Who knows with the pandemic going on where that will eventually land. So I can talk about that process a little bit. And then another reason I'm here is, I haven't written anything like Star Wars or done anything for Marvel or some such. I would love to. And one of the reasons I'm here is to learn more about your experiences with that and figure out how to break into some of those properties. But I do have another series that I wrote, but it's branded with Philippe Cousteau Jr. And it was a very collaborative process between the two of us and our editor at HarperCollins, coming up with this A-Team meets the animal kingdom idea, where these animals start taking matters into their own hands, paws, flippers, and claws to make a difference for other endangered species and things like that. The second book in this series comes out in 1 month, October 5th, I think. It's always a Tuesday, many of you know. So whatever that Tuesday is in October. And collaborating with a partner who gets top billing, but you're really the guy who wrote the book is kind of an interesting thing. And that's fine. He's been wonderful with with marketing and with branding and with guiding the process of the book along, and had a lot to contribute in terms of setting up characters and some sort of plot points. And then he actually very graciously kind of got out of the way just to let me write, which was fun. And I can talk about all of that.
I'm sorry I'm late, guys. It's Tucson, it's storming. I had to restart my server, my thingy.
You're good. You're fine. You're on time.
Who's the moderator? Just so I know who can tell me to shut up if I'm talking too much.
You are.
Yes.
No, you
I
are.
would never
No,
tell you to
Wes,
shut
I
up.
love you
You
and I
are.
hate you. Are you kidding?
Your
Seriously?
name is underlined as a moderator.
That's only because I'm cool. It doesn't mean I'm a moderator.
I'll happily hand over to you, Linda. I just don't want to tell you to shut up.
Hal, you are a wise man. This is why you've probably been married so long.
I-
No, Hal, so you're the moderator, right? I don't
I
believe
am.
anything Wes says unless he's pouring it into a glass and it's wine.
Yes, welcome. I'm the moderator. Maya and Austin have introduced yourselves, and Linda, Wes. I guess you two can fight it out as to who gets to play Alien Resurrection and who gets to introduce.
Linda?
Let's do it. Do it, baby.
Okay, well, I'm the author of about 34 or so books. I've worked in other people's sandboxes quite a bit in the last few years. Recently, I've worked for X-Files, Predator, Hellboy, Clive Barker's Midian. I have an Aliens novel that's actually a prequel to a game, which is it's called Aliens Infiltrator, which is getting a lot of sales because gamers are gamers and they want all the tricks and all the shortcuts and Easter eggs from the book, and luckily the game company Cold Forge or Cold Iron, they put them in. They put a lot of the things that I put in the book in the game, to include 2 of the aliens that I invented. So I can now say that there are 2 aliens that are now canon that I was able to invent, that anybody else can write and include in their universe. I've also written for Joe Ledger, which is a growing group, and as far as Hollywood and the like, I've been, like a lot of people, taking a lot of meetings, which means that they'll listen to you and nod their head, but they won't do anything. But I've talked to the head of Paramount, the head of Sony, the former head of a couple of the studios, and I've been speaking with Dwayne Johnson's company, which is $7 Productions, off and off the last year, because they have a shopping agreement for SEAL Team 666 that they've had for the last 5 years. So if he will stop doing Jumanji 14, maybe we could finally see, my book made into a movie.
Oh man. By the way, pretty cover, Wes.
Isn't that cool?
Nice.
Notice how it has a human skull and human hands.
Yeah.
Alien does. Yeah.
Yeah. I also like the book, but you know me, I love your writing. So the reason I'm here is I just made my first baby step into this realm, and it's with Black Panther, Tales of Wakanda.
Wakanda.
Hey, Wakanda, forever. So it's a Marvel thing. It was, really, literally, I wear this like around my neck, like the rappers wear gold things. I wear my book, I wear the Black Panther book. So yeah, I'll be happy to talk about stuff, the beginning to the end of that process. It was pretty amazing and stuff. This is my first one, but probably not the last.
That would be good. Let's kick this off with how do you get into writing tie-ins? I've always wondered this. What gets you that publisher call?
Notoriety. In my case, it's it's like I wanted to write, and I want to write Alien Novel forever, but Titan and Steve Saffel are the ones who own it right now, and if you don't know them and they don't know you, there's a limited number of people. So it's like I akin it to like AAA baseball. You're out there and you're hitting and you're pitching, you're doing fine, and then suddenly somebody says, "Hey, bud, it's time to come up to the bigs." I know it sounds silly, but you really have to. I mean, with my experience, you have to be chosen, because it's either your editor knows their editor, your agent knows that agent, or that editor knows you, and it's either through networking or your own hard work.
Yeah, I don't know what the magic is either, because I was contacted about the process, which we'll talk about, because it's a process of writing a piece for this. And yeah, I suppose since they wanted Black authors and I had a whole bunch of awards, it was inevitable for me. But that was for this. I can't say for the rest of any possibilities to come up. But now that I have this, which is the Titan Marvel thing, I think once you get something in there, then like Wes was saying, then you become in the radar. So I have been talking about some other stuff, but I don't think I would have had these conversations if I hadn't gotten into this first. So.
And for me, it was, I had the good fortune to be introduced to Michael Reeves at one of my friend Mark Scott Zickery, who's a teleplay writer. Mostly he's done Star Trek and Babylon 5, and actually did my very favorite episode of Deep Space Nine. Was one of his, and he introduced me at a writer's workshop table that he did in LA to Michael Reeves. And later, when Michael's health failed, Mark basically put the two of us together and said, "Maya, can you help him? He's got too many contracts and he can't do all of them." So I kind of came in, Michael was my Jedi master, and I got to be the Padawan, right? And did some things like, well, the first thing we did that I did for him was a Riddick novel that they decided not to publish when the Chronicles movie kind of tanked, and then the video release also tanked, and so they never wanted the book. So I got to file the serial numbers off that one. But when Michael was working on his Coruscant Nights series, he started by having me basically do beta reading and editing for him, and then I wrote the third book. And he kind of, it's like he Star Wars. He said, "I'm going to Star Wars it up. You just write it. Don't worry about the terminology and that kind of thing. I'll fix that, when we start putting it together." So I kind of did that like without actually I didn't sign a contract with Del Rey. And then the next two books I got on, because I was already working. I had a couple of novels out from Del Rey already. I got to be part of the Michael Maya team, which was really very wonderful. And we did a book called Shadow Games, which is now part of the Legends. Since Disney has moved on and is doing, post New Hope things. We're doing the kind of things in the middle. And we did Shadow Games, and we did The Last Jedi, which is the fourth book in the Coruscant Nights trilogy. Okay, so which is kind of cool. And in both of those cases, it was kind of like that. Like I did what Michael refers to as the heavy lifting, and then he would come, along, and we would finesse it. And what I loved about working with Michael in that was that his prose style was similar enough to my own that I would go back over stuff that he had written or edited, and I sometimes couldn't tell which one of us had written that part of the book, of a book, unless he used a word that was like a Michael word. But with the Last Jedi, literally, he pitched that novel in an email to Shelley Shapiro, and it just out of the clear blue sky, she said, "Hey, you guys want to write? You guys want to write this novel?" And we said, "We'd be stupid to say no." So we went ahead and wrote the Last Jedi with that, which was really an interesting thing. And actually, I don't know if David Pomerico is with Harper EOS anymore, but he was actually, I know he was there at least for a while. He was our editor on Shadow Games. He was our kind of associate editor on that. So it was one of those things where Michael had been invited to that party like years and years ago. He did the Darth Maul Shadow Hunter, and then did an entire series basically following the adventures of the droid I-5YQ, and who's like a constant through all of those novels. And it is a club that, you know, you have to be invited to write the Star Wars novels, basically. And I think that varies. I know you can pitch Star Trek novels to whoever's doing them now. I think there's actually more than one publisher that is doing the Star Trek novels. But Star Wars, it's like you kind of have to have an in some way, or someone will reach out to you and say, "Hey, would you be interested in writing this novel?"
I wanted to just, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't know if that's changed under Disney.
I was going to say, I will always relinquish anything I say to Wes, other than my own personal experience with Black Panther. But what I would say to Austin, since you said you're interested in doing this, is to do the research and see if there are some books like this, that areas that you're interested in, and see if they're doing pitches. Also, I think what Maya was saying is that you were introduced to somebody at a convention that's in that lane too. I will say that one of the writers in this book did share that they had heard about this being done by the editor who doesn't work for Titan. And I have a question for you about that later, Wes. And then he actually contacted that editor and said, please think about me. Can I, you know what I'm saying? Like, maybe not like that, because that's me. But, you know, so I think it is possible, but to find the different ways, again, you know, Wes would know more than I do, but those just the experiences I do know is that someone did get into this by just simply tracking down the first level editor that was not in the Titan.
Well, Titan UK owns so much property. Going all the way back to Sax Rohmer and all those books, they own so much. And if they have a database, and you can go in there and you can look at what the things they have. For instance, I pitched a brand new Fu Manchu series, having a female protagonist in making this cyber thing instead of you know, being this ultra jingoistic, you know, almost racist type of anti-Asian books that they were at the time. And you know, they almost picked it up because it's just laying around and nobody's doing anything with it. They have so much property right now that literally, if you can get access to it, and I could probably help you, you can just go through it and see if something interests you, and then just put up a pitch, because they don't know what they don't know. You know, they don't know what's good, because it's like they're Sanford and Sons, right? They're sitting in this garbage dump, you know, quote unquote, and there's antiques and there's all these other things and stuff like this, and they don't know it's worth anything until somebody comes up and offers them for it. Oh. And the only reason I mentioned Sanford and Sons is because I saw their El Segundo episode yesterday.
So there's a lot of interesting things going on here, and I'm hearing a couple themes arise that resonate with me. And one of them is, you know, you have to be invited in. I also really like that they don't know what they don't know. This is an experience that I've had working on these projects. They know what they don't like, and they'll tell you right away when they don't like it. But they don't have any. A lot of these producers and book people are waiting for us as the authors to figure out the story and come up with what works.
Give them IP, yeah, exactly.
So for me, you know, I finished my first series and was writing more of my own stuff, and you know, the young adult industry was changing quickly back in 2015, and lots of other things were going on too, and so it was becoming a bit overwhelming to you publish a book and you sort of erroneously think, well, I'm in the door and the rest of my career is made. I'm just going to keep rifling off books for the rest of my life. But my experience has been that it's just as tough every single time to pitch an idea and to get it through your agent, and then to find an editor, and then get it through the pub board and make it work. So while I was struggling with some of these things, I told my agent, I said, hey, if you have anything like work for hire or IP stuff, let me know. I'd be happy to try it out. And one of the other things I heard tonight was, you'd be stupid to say no. I think part of being in this particular industry is being receptive to the universe, and just being willing to try interesting things on. So I eventually I heard back from my agent that there was I guess nowadays they're sort of calling them book packagers. I'm not sure if that's the exact correct way of putting it, but this was a pretty reputable small group of powerful guys in Hollywood who had just they were coming off of their big pocketbooks with having optioned the Twilight books and turning them into movies, and they were doing Maze Runner at the time, and they had this thought in their heads that, well, we've got these ideas, and we've found ourselves sitting around waiting for a book that sort of resembles this idea to come up so we can snatch it up because we know what we're looking for. Well, why don't we put some feelers out there among the author community and see if anyone's willing to partner us to write a book? And they came to me with this very vague turbo racer idea. Wish fulfillment, 13-year-old boy gets behind the wheel of this vehicle that can transform between air, land, and sea. And he starts winning races and upending the sport. And that's really all they had. That was their idea. But I wasn't in a position to say no. I'm certainly not someone who's well-versed in NASCAR and racing and competitive sports and, all that stuff. But I definitely wasn't going to say no. And I wondered about this a little bit. It felt, if you've tried to write a book and you've gone on to get published, that there's some predatory aspects to the industry out there. And I was self-aware enough to at least be asking myself the question, is this worth my time? What's it going to be like? I've got a very good agent at a very top agency who was reassuring me that this was legit. And so what I did is I came up with the treatment, and they loved it over at Temple Hill Entertainment, and we worked through it a little bit more. And then they helped shop around a detailed synopsis and a first 50 pages, and it got picked up right away by HarperCollins. And so we were off to the races at that point. Really nice. And then, I still don't have any idea how the terms work out. There's not a lot of comparison or comparing notes going on between authors of contracts and what those look like. But it was, it saved my writing career, to be honest with you. And it created a couple years worth of great work. And I had always thought to myself, if this works out, it's going to open more new doors for me, and it's going to create different relationships, and I'll be able to leverage those. And that's exactly what happened when I was approached by the same editor to partner with Philippe Cousteau Jr. on this project. He had me in mind because of all that groundwork and hard work going into it.
Austin, can I ask you a question about turbo racer?
Yeah.
And if this is too personal, you don't want to answer, just please don't. Just tell me. But one of the issues that I've had about creating IP, especially when people come to me with just an idea and they want me to flesh out the idea, is I've had contracts where they won't give me a piece of any sub rights.
I'm sure that conversation is going to come up this evening. Yeah, because
sub rights is a big deal. I was offered $50K, which is a whole lot of money, to write a book for this one company. And basically I was given a one-page idea and I was supposed to come up with everything else, right? And initially it was $25K, and my agent got it up to $50. And that's a lot of money for publishing. I mean, nowadays, that's a huge amount of money. And I walked away from it because they wouldn't give me any sub rights. And the last thing I wanted to see was my work turned into a movie, and doing blockbusters in Hollywood, and me sitting back there and going, shit. There's Weston Ochse is nowhere on that screen.
Well, I had guarantees that wouldn't be the case. I would have walked away as well.
Okay, good.
If
good.
I was just writing, ghost writing something and handing
because it sounds like you did all the heavy lifting on that.
Well, and my name is on the book, and my name is the only name on the book. And there were some very significant, very good back end terms for all of this. If it good. Everything from Lego to Saturday morning television, streaming, and amusement park rides. I don't know if that's standard boilerplate stuff these days, but
if it says 50% of sub rights, it means everything. But yours, what it is?
I definitely had sub rights. Yeah, and that was important to me. We do come into this with an ego.
Oh yeah, we do.
Although a lot of authors make a really good living ghostwriting, and I'm not knocking that at all, and it's something I would absolutely consider doing for sure. I was early career. I sort of still am, and just looking for the next solid stone to step on to keep moving forward. And this offered a really nice path forward for me, and I'm grateful that I was receptive to the universe and that I said yes to this. Ultimately, if it didn't pan out, I had, spent a couple solid weeks of heavily thinking about this character, Mace Blazer, and sort of building a world around him. And I mean, I do that for free anyway. And that's certainly the way things were before I published my first book, but I was writing novels left and right. So I wasn't too full of myself yet at that point to deny the opportunity when it came my way.
And I think
I'm very curious about how you guys feel about sub rights, especially in Star Wars. When I've heard stories about things from a book showing up in the movie with no attribution, and how frustrating that must be, or maybe it's not. I don't know.
See, I think that's a really I'm sorry. Go ahead, Maya.
No, I was just going to say they pay really well up front, and it's but it is more of a work for hire kind of thing with them. Although I was really incredibly pleased with the contract that we got when we did The Last Jedi. It was actually more than I expected in terms of royalties and the whole thing.
Was that before Disney?
This was pre-Disney. This was when it was, Lucas
just
books
barely, right?
And Del Rey, yeah, just barely. Literally, that book was coming out right around the time things were changing, and Del Rey didn't even know if it was going to continue to do any of the books. And Disney just kept saying, "Well, we don't have any plans. We don't have any plans," but they had their own Hyperion imprint at that point, and Hyperion actually picked up some of the books, and Del Rey, I think, maybe clear of it now. I don't know. But they were all done, pretty much with Del Rey. But I was just going to say that I think the opportunity is really, it's a two-edged sword. Sometimes you can be hungry enough that you might take something that looks like an opportunity, and what it actually is a time sink. So, and this was something I worried about when I had a full-time job, managing a software team, and I wrote my first 4 novels with that. I started fearing that if I took up doing editing and ghostwriting, that I would not be able to do my own stuff. And that's something I have had to fight with, because I do a lot of ghostwriting and I do a lot of editing. But with this opportunity thing, it's like the very first thing that Michael needed help with was that Riddick novel. And I looked at the description of it and the plot line of it, and I thought, holy cow, I can't write this character. It's like the people who created him say he's little more than an animal and there's not much going on in his head. How do you write a book about somebody who's little more than an animal and has not, going? So Michael said, well, kind of basically use the force. It's like, get sneaky. And I did. I got really sneaky about how, I made the reader to think that Riddick was really a lot more intelligent than people gave him credit for, with these little things that he would say that were intended to make the reader go, wait, was that Ben Franklin that said that? And this sort of thing. So what I did was, in order to turn that, because I was terrified of trying to write this book. I'd only ever written my own characters at this point, was I made it a challenge. I said, this is a challenge. I am going to make this character intriguing, if it kills me. And I did my damnedest to make him intriguing. So there was that. And at that point in my career, I had just lost my day job. And I was freelancing like within a week. I had a ghostwrite and the Riddick novel and, another thing that Michael wanted me to do that was an original novel that we collaborated on. So it was a really scary time. And the only thing that terrified me was I up to the challenge? So I think if you're asking yourself the question, if you're in a position of, well, should I pursue this? Should I get my agent to talk to Steve Saffel or, whatever? Do I want to try this? That's kind of, what you look at is, can I accept this as a challenge? Can I turn this into something that'll be fun for me to do or intriguing enough for me to do that I can actually pull it off? Because I was surprised. I was absolutely stunned by how much fun I had writing that book.
Amen.
So by the time I was doing the Star Wars stuff, it was like, wow, were those fun. I got to write Han Solo.
I learned something about myself during this process, that as an author, I can be given a prompt and come up with a full novel. And that's a really exciting thing to be able to prove and not just, theoretically believe about yourself. It's great. Linda, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to share that, I, as Wes and Vaughn know, I have struggled with the concept of doing novels because I've made my career on collections of short stories and poetry. And so when I
just saw your 2 poems in the science fiction fantasy magazine,
Yes.
hit my mailbox a couple days ago.
She's
Those were
brilliant.
nice.
It's brilliant.
I'm so excited. I can't even stand it. Why did you even bring that up? Now I'm not going to be able to make full sentences. But I mean, and they put the poet on the cover. What? The world is ending any minute now. I'm just saying. So
I think you've been talking about the risks of writing in somebody else's sandbox, and we're about to move into the rewards. So Linda, now that you can't come out with valid sentences, what are the rewards of writing in somebody else's sandbox?
Well, actually, that's a great segue, Hal, because one of the things that I was going to talk about is the fact that when this first came up, the idea of writing a story in Black Panther, I mean, it seemed like an incredible thing, but I was working on my novel at the time too. And that was like, and I'm not a fast fiction writer. I mean, I can write a poem in a minute, you know what I'm saying? But to write, the novel has been a journey, the first novel anyway. I'm working on the second one now, thank goodness. But thank you, Vaughn. But when it first came up, I was also fighting being a long hauler with COVID last year. So I literally was like, I don't even have brain cells to do this. So I was like, oh, well, but then it came back a second time. And at that point, I decided to try it. What I learned was, I mean, it wasn't a novel because I can't do another novel. I mean, literally, as much as I love Star Wars, I would not do a Star Wars novel now because I'm in my own Star Wars lane and I need to do that. But when it did it, it was like a test to me too, Austin. I was like, well, let's see, or Maya, whoever said it was like a test, like, let me see if I can do this. So I needed to write 7,000 words in a week. And at my best, that was going to be a moment. I was not at my best when I started doing this.
That would be a challenge for me too.
Right?
I can get 2,000 words a day in sometimes, but that exhausts me and I better not have anything else on my plate.
Honestly, But I so felt like this feeling in my soul to have a story in the Black Panther anthology, and Chadwick had just died. That was just like, I had to try.
So
And
this
so
was after he died?
Yes.
I was going to ask that.
Yes. I mean, the first time he was still alive, the second time when it came, I was watching a thing on TV about his life. He had died and I'm crying. And then I get the email again. And, you know, I don't want to get into like a supernatural thing here, but I was talking to Chadwick. I was like, dude, do you understand what it's going to take me to do this in a week? I can't even. And he was, and I just kept getting this energy going, yeah, you cried for me, now write for me, bitch. I was like, wow, okay. So, so I set my mind to 1,000 words a day, and I did it in like 20-minute bits, and it worked. And now I'm like, I wonder if I can do a 7,000 word, if I can do 1,000 words a day on my book or another story. Because if I did that weekend, then I should, I mean, I don't think I could do it consistently like forever, like Wes can, but whatever. So, I mean, the best part of it was getting the pitch through. I don't know if we're going to talk about the levels, but getting the pitch through and then getting the story through, the 2 levels of editors, because the editor whose name is on here, Jesse J. Holland, does not work for Marvel or Titan. So I had his feedback, and then I had their feedback, and then I had the whole canon feedback. But you know, I went all around that because I decided my main interest was, I wonder what it's like to be trained as a Dora Milaje. And there wasn't nothing out there like that. So I got to play there. They made one little suggestion on the teacher in my story. I had some name and they were like, Linda, would you mind calling her Okoye? And I was like, nope. So, you know, I think the biggest time I put in beforehand, before starting the story, was reading the comic book canon, because all the stories in this book are based on the comic book canon, not the movies. So I got hooked into comicology, or however you say that. And they had all the Black Panther Wakanda comics for free because Chadwick had just died. So I got all the comics. I downloaded all of them. I read everything, saw all the pictures of anything that had to do with the Dora Milaje. So it was great fun once, you know, to go through the process, to have it out. Like, I'm always throwing it up because it's exciting. I mean, it's Wakanda. It's Black Panther. What?
Yeah. But you mentioned, you know, like the rewards. What are the rewards? Like I said, getting to write Han Solo. And that was sneaky because we didn't let anybody know. The editor said, don't tell anybody that Han Solo is going to be in the book because they'll stick him on the cover and it'll become a thing, you know. And we want it to be, this is about Jax Paven, who thinks he's the last Jedi, and so on and so forth. And the actual writing process is really kind of wonderful. I mean, I love working collaboratively with people. So working with Michael collaboratively was marvelous, and our editor Shelley Shapiro was just, you know, was awesome. And I enjoy that. I mean, that's part of the thing, because when you're working in someone else's sandbox, you do have other parties that are, you know, that have input. And one of the things, like Linda mentioned, is getting, you know, you've made the pitch, they've said, yes, we want the book. Then you do an outline. And with The Last Jedi, that was one of the most torturous parts of the thing, was getting the book, the outline the way they wanted it. And what we started out with, you know, was thrown out a couple of times, and we had to keep modifying it for kind of weird reasons in some case to us, which was that, well, no, you can't have Force ghosts in this. This is before Obi-Wan and Yoda discover that you can come back as a Force ghost. And we're like, what? You know, and Michael's been working with Star Wars for like decades at this point. He's going, what? You know? And so that had to change. That we had to take that out. So we ended up having Force ghosts without actually calling them Force ghosts. So we kind of snuck them in there. But that was you know, we went around and around with that. And then we were told, it's like, okay, the movie it needs to be dark. It needs to be really dark. And so we said, okay, we can go dark. That's cool. You know, everybody dies. No, not quite that dark. But then at that point with this particular property, and I suspect it's the same thing with other shared universe, when you're working in someone else's sandbox, there are culture experts. So we had, two folks who knew Star Wars upside down, backwards. They had, had oversight. They were at Lucas Books who had done oversight, and they would go through the manuscript and say, this is not Star Warsy enough. It's too Star Wars. You can't use that word because this is, there's no concept of Earth in Star Wars. Earth does not exist. So you can't use terminology that is Earth specific. And so we're like, well, can we have cats and dogs? Do we have to call them something else? And then, locations and that. So you had to kind of like use them as experts, which was really an interesting thing of saying, hey, what do you know about this location? And the cool thing that happened it happens in Shadow Games, is there was a location I desperately wanted to use that not even the experts knew a lot about. And they said, well, go look at the comics. Go look at the graphic novels, because that's the only place this is addressed. And when I came back, and neither I nor the expert could find where this was referenced, they just sort of said, do what you want with it. So it's like, I got to build out canon a little bit there. But it really is a question of all these different levels. You begin to really understand why the lead time on some of those books is like 2 years or more. It's really a long thing, because they've got so many steps they need to take the book through before they're happy, and they can say it's done, and the experts love it.
If I can jump in, with Aliens Infiltrator, it was actually rather easy, even though I had 5 different levels of oversight, and it took us 4 months to get the outline done. Because it was myself, it was Titan Books, then it was Fox, and because Disney has taken over Fox, it was Disney was part of it, and then I also had Cold Iron Studios. I had the gamers, and the gamers wanted to be involved. And when you turn in an outline, for work for hire, they generally want an outline, and my outlines are basically 2 sentences. But the gamers didn't get that. They wanted to know, well, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And I'm like, it's in the book. It'll be in the book. Trust me. I'm telling you what's going to be in the book. Well, tell us now. So it was back and forth. But it ended up working out great. I was originally supposed to do a work for hire for a CBS product a few years ago. And I was going to be the only media tie-in for that TV show. And it was going smashingly until the showrunner got involved. And the showrunner wanted his name on the cover, but didn't want to do anything. He wanted to be by him, and wanted me to be a byline. And it became this huge thing to where I ended up going to CBS and saying, you know what, give me my kill fee, because they'd already paid me in advance, and said, give me a kill fee. I can't do this, because like Austin said. And I think a few others have leaned to, you have to respect yourself at the end of the day. I mean, these are work for hire, but we're not those kind of workers, right? We have to respect ourselves, and as long as we look in the mirror and we respect ourselves, we're good. But I wasn't going to let them push me around. And this young guy, he wanted to take all the credit for all of my work, and I wouldn't let him do it. So I put down a 5-figure fee for that. I just had to let it go. But as far as the good things, because this is a prequel to a game, I can go on Discord at any time during the day, and there's like 10,000 people on the game Discord channel. And I'll go in there, and they'll be like, Weston, tell me the secret of this, tell me the secret of that. I'm like, I don't know. I just wrote the book. But it's nice because if it's a prequel to a game, and hardcore gamers, they're going to buy the book because they think the book has like all these secrets. So when they came out with that idea to do the prequel, that was really good, because as far as I've been told, this book has outsold any other Aliens book that's been published so far. And I'd like to say it's because of Weston. But really, it's just because it's tied to the game, and the game is really super popular because it just came out 3 weeks ago.
It doesn't hurt that you're a kick butt writer, but
Yeah, but all of us can write. All of us can write. All of us can write to here. Some of us can write to here, but still, all of us can write. So, I feel lucky to have been asked to work on this project, and I was asked because I had a record with Steve Saffel, and he trusted me, and he wanted to work with me, and we finally found an opportunity to do so.
I wanted to share a really quick thing about the Black Panther one, which is so close to my heart. And the book had just come out, and I was at the supermarket. And I told this story, I think, on another panel maybe, but I was at the supermarket, and I live here in Tucson, in Arizona. So, and next to me was a cart with a little brown boy with a Marvel t-shirt on with Black Panther and, other Marvel heroes on it. And he was there with three women, sister, mother, whatever. And he's staring at me because I'm wearing blue hair today, but I had purple, and it was really like, kids always stare at me with the hair. So as I'm leaving, we all had our masks on. I said to him, do you know who has a story in a Black Panther book? And it had just been released. And his eyes got like this. And I was like, me. And I said, my name is Linda Addison. Get the book, read the story. And then I said to him, and you know who else could write a story that'll be in a Black Panther book or movie? And then he was like, what are you talking about? I said, you. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that just made me so happy, because how many opportunities is that little boy going to get to cross paths with that situation? And I meant it. Because the only reason I'm in the position I'm in is because I had so many people showing me ways, showing me, being like an example of how I could be. So I ain't never going to stop telling that story. It just makes me so happy.
I love that story, and it leads into an obvious question for somebody else's Sandbox panel, and that is that you've got a built-in fan audience. So fan reaction to your work. How many dreams have you made manifest, and how many sacred cows have you slain?
Sacred cows. I think my favorite episode with the Star Wars books was I was actually doing a panel for my mystery novel, Antiquities Hunter, and this young guy came up with his girlfriend, and he said, he had a copy of Shadow Games, and he's holding it, and he goes, "This is my favorite Star Wars book ever. Would you please sign it for me?" And it was so sweet. And his mom was there. His mom was one of the other writers on the panel, which I get the biggest kick out of. And that was really cool. Was having that. And Shadow Games to me, it was just a light kind of fun novel to write. But, to him, it was like this really, incredibly cool thing. And I had something, one other thing similar that was like probably the only time this will ever happen to me in my whole life. I was giving a talk at our local Baha'i Center, and there was a group of kids there from the local college that were sitting, and I introduced myself and said, I'm Maya Bohnhoff, and I write Star Wars novels. And this one kid in the front row sat up straight, and his eyes got really, really big, and he just stared at me the whole time. And when the talk was over and I was meeting people, he goes, "You know my mom. I'm Simon Clough. I run the Wikipedia site on Star Wars site on Wiki on the and are you the Maya Kaathryn Bohnhoff?" I was like, I never expected to get like, "Are you the thing?" It was just like, oh yeah. And that built-in fan base is just absolutely marvelous. They are wonderful.
Have you ever had someone ask you to sign a book that you didn't write?
No, I haven't had that happen yet. Maybe I'll be asked to sign copies of The Last Jedi novelization of the movie. That hasn't happened yet, but it might.
I'm now very tempted to ask Austin to sign my copy of The Chronicles of Narnia. Has that happened?
This is never going to end now, because I'm all about doing that too, Hal. Like finding some book and be like, "Austin, could you sign this one?"
I'll sign anything.
Yeah.
I think for me, when you're talking about these things, the reaction I I often get, and we had an incredible person, Kim McMillan, Professor Kim McMillan, who was setting up a lot of panels for the Black Panther thing, like in Southern Black schools and, you know, traditional Black areas and groups and stuff. It was just fabulous. And not just this, by the way, I'm saying this because I want to shout out to Kim because she did a lot of hard work to get that out there, but in general, including this convention. Whenever I talk about the fact that my story is about a 14-year-old girl coming to the Golden City, the capital, to start her training as a Dora Milaje, and how I wrote that because I wanted to know what that was. And I literally had to create a lot of that because there was nothing about their training in the canon. So, you know, Weston, once again, Weston Bohnhoff, get what I'm talking about. I had to learn online a lot about how you train with a sword, the language, the movement, the whole thing. But I always often get a reaction from, in particular, the young people, male and female, and adults, female, when I say that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to know what it's like to train as a warrior woman. So that always seems to, and then when they have students asking questions, I get a good amount of the questions asking me about what that was like, because they're somehow very drawn to, not that Black Panther isn't a draw, but I guess it's like a new conversation to talk about the Dora Milaje, you know, so it's nice.
Well, they're so cool.
They are, man, literally.
So
I mean, look at me. How was I going to write about anything else? We had a lot of choices, and I was like, everybody going to be writing about, you know, Black Panther and all these other things. I'm going to do a story all about the Dora Milaje. And their Dora Milaje are in other stories, but the one I did with the 14-year-old trainee, and I threw in some infinite reality stuff because why not? I'm obsessed.
Austin, any fan stories?
No. You know, what's interesting is the difference for me is that I'm creating these things from scratch. I would love to do some more work in other people's sandboxes, and it's going to be interesting, the idea that there's all sorts of canon to filter through and research to do, and going back and looking at certain rules that have been set in place. And one of the nice things about the two properties that I've worked on is it really was a blank slate. I wrote the book I wanted to write. The characters turned out the way they did because it was me putting myself into them, and I just had a lot of fun. And I'm really hoping that these products will find some feet and move on. You know, they're doing okay. I think it starts to kick into gear once you start seeing commercials for the new Netflix show, or you get a trailer for the movie coming out, and then to see my name associated with that, the whole new, you know, built environment around that would be really, really special. But there's no like clamoring fan base for either of these properties yet. They're out there, they're middling along, and that's fine. And waiting for things to lurch into gear, and then we'll see how much fun we have with that.
Well, Wes, I'm sure you've written for countless franchises that have clamoring fan bases. How many days have you made, and how many days have you destroyed?
You know, I really enjoy writing for the ones I've written for, because they're favorites of mine. I mean, writing in Clive Barker's world, you know, is just incredible, right? You know, creating a Midian monster, that was just awesome. As I was writing it, I'm a very organic author when it comes to short stories, especially. And my character did things that I did not expect him to do. And I love that when that happens, because it turns out just wonderful. The story I wrote for an X-Files anthology, I was told, well, several reviewers said it was the most X-Files story in the anthology. And so, you know, that's kind of nice, because, you know, there's 20 something stories in there. And to know that the X-Files was probably one of the last times I had appointment television every Friday night to, just to go watch it. And that I've inculcated that into my psyche was kind of fun. Right now I just have a lot of folks. I have this one guy up in British Columbia who's like, he says he's read 6 books in his entire life. And he read Aliens Infiltrator, and he loved it so much he read it again. And then he played half the game, and then he said, "Do you have anything else that you've written?" I said, "Well, yeah, Google me." And so he's now reading my entire stock of every book I've ever read, and he's like 7 books into my books, and he's like, "These are great." I said, "I know." And he says, "I've now read more books of yours than anybody else in my entire life." You see, that's kind of neat. I mean, just one person, it's no big deal. But, I'm a kid from a trailer park at the edge of the Great Plains of South Dakota. So, just to have somebody, read me and appreciate me is always a really nice thing, because as we know, when we're writing, it's in a vacuum. We're sitting there, we have our self-doubts, we're trying to push them aside, and we're trying to make sure that our egos and our hubris is strong enough to get through there, so that we're like, oh yeah, I can write this. And most of the time it works, and sometimes it doesn't.
I wanted to add 2 things. One, I always have one of Wes's books, because I have a whole shelf of them, next to wherever I write. Why? Because sometimes when I write, part of what I have is an issue with just writing the movement, the characters, and that whole, and I just open one of his books randomly and just read, and it's sort of like a palate cleanser. It gets me right back on track. You know that's right, Wes. Don't even try.
Oh, just go on.
And wow, I totally forgot what the other thing was, because that is really so important to me.
Well, we have 3 minutes left, so I should ask each of the panelists to tell us where we can find you and your stuff. And maybe just with a very quick 10-second answer, is there a dream franchise that you dearly want to write for but have not written for yet?
Well, I would actually love to have written for Supernatural or Grimm. Actually, Stargate would have been kind of cool too, but those were the 2 that I thought I could write stories in those universes. That would be a lot of fun. My stuff is available at the local bookstores, Barnes and Noble. Also at Bookview Cafe, which is a writer's co-op. I have some, like, my backlist is there. Amazon, I have an Amazon page. And you can also buy the mystery novel directly from Pegasus Books, and the 2 prequel novelettes on Amazon, which are ebooks as well. But Star Wars stuff it's all over the place. There's also a Batman novel out there that you might find called Fear Itself.
Maya, my best friend growing up, he's in LA now. He's a TV writer, and he wrote several Supernatural episodes, including the Scooby-Doo one.
Oh my God.
It's been fun watching him take off. He's doing a lot of stuff with Flash these days, and wrote the 2 Mortal Kombat animated movies that are now out. I wanted to say, my first novel, Islands at the End of the World, it involves an epileptic character, and the fandom on that book has really been interesting. It's also sort of been taken up as a Catholic novel, and it's taught as summer high school reading for Catholic schools all over the place, and that's sort of building steam and becoming an interesting thing. It's really nice and satisfying when I hear folks, teenagers with epilepsy, tell me how much the story meant to them. So wait, the question was, where can you find us? I'm on Twitter at Lost in Space. That's also the same for Facebook. I'd love to keep track with you guys and catch up and be able to network with you all. And then what else was there? Oh, what would I love to write for? Well, Pretty much anything. I mean, Star Wars would be a absolute dream come true. That would be super, super cool. That would be a really, really gorgeous feather in my cap, no doubt about it. I'd have fun writing anything. I'm so incredibly impressed with what Marvel is putting out these days, and just the quality of the storytelling and the way they're making a difference, and just phase after phase, product after product, they keep surprising me, and it's something to really be proud of, and it'd be a lot of fun to be involved in something like that. And so kudos to you, Linda, and it just really anything, it'd be really, really fun. So
Say it and it'll
I'm
happen.
I'm receptive to the universe, as I
Just keep saying it and it will happen. Trust and believe.
We're all open.
I'm trying to think of a
if
specific
I-
character
if
I would
I-
love to write, and I've had those thoughts before, but it's not coming to mind. So I'll just leave it there.
If I had a choice for a character or a product to write for, I would love to write The Punisher, because I love what's been done recently on streaming with him. I really see him as that kind of animal who's barely in control of himself, and I think I could really do a good job writing that kind of character. I think he's absolutely wonderful. As far as where to find me, Linda is one of my patrons. I have a Patreon account, and where I give away, we do weekly novel chapters, weekly novella chapters. I update you on my health. I update you on all sorts of different things that you may or may not want to know.
Incredible advice about writing and publishing and agents.
I do a lot of coaching and stuff like that. And if you just look up my name on Patreon, you can find that. Otherwise, I'm in all the usual places. Most bookstores have at least one or two of my books, and you know, it's just the nature of the beast. When they sell one, they either order one or they don't. You know, sometimes they order replacements, sometimes they don't. It just depends. But you can always get them from all the online outlets. If I have a new book coming out, though, and you want to get one of my new books, I recommend either going through Mysterious Galaxy in San Diego or the Poison Pen in Phoenix, because they will have signed books of mine. For instance, I have a book coming out in October called A Hole in the World, which is a spinoff from the Dead Sky, Burning Sky series. And they will have signed copies of those. And by then, hopefully, we'll be doing book signings in place. If not, then I'll just be doing more virtual book signings. And the next time you'll see me in person is if you guys come down to Tucson in November. I'm Toastmaster for Tuscon, which is the big 42nd year of the sci-fi convention, sci-fi fantasy and horror convention that we have here in Arizona. It's the oldest one we have, and definitely would love any of you to come on down. So
your poet laureate will be there. Just saying.
Good. Make sure she brings you.
Oh man, you know, Wes. So many things to say, so little time. Anyway, you can find me at lindaddisonwriter.com altogether. And I don't even know. I mean, I have a thought, but I'm not even going to say it. But Black Panther was beyond what I could have imagined. I really never even thought about that. This is the first anthology that they've come out with it. And so to be in that is like, I guess that would have been the one, because I love Star Wars, but I just love it so much. It's hard for me to think of writing something there. So.
And with that, I need to close down for the next panel. So I will thank our panelists, Austin, Aslan.
You don't have to close it out. You can leave it open. It's your decision. You don't have to close it. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but Sean and Tom need to open up on theirs, and that's the same thing. So I kind of need to. So Austin, Aslan, ladies and gentlemen, Weston Ochse, the Maya Kaathryn Bohnhoff, and that chick from the supermarket with the purple hair. Thank you all, and thank you everybody for attending.
The girl with the dragon tattoo.
There you go, Linda. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.